Right. So I remember this first task I was given in my first job here in Paris back in 2019 when I started my first job. I just finished my business school thing. I had a debt and I wanted to pay back my debt as soon as possible. Debt in India is more expensive. And the first task I was given, it was supposed to last for like a week. And I had like this manager in the client side, let's just call him the client. And I had this manager in this consultancy firm I was working for. So I get this first problem statement and I'm given a week to work on it and I'm giving it my everything. I'm spending into the late hours in the evening trying to figure out the best way, Googling almost everything possible, talking to people that I know to make the best approach possible. So there's a problem statement and I'm asked to make the approach. So I get to work this Friday. I book this room and I'm ready. I've worked on this for a whole week now. Now I'm ready. I have 3 slides. The first one's the context. For the most part, context is just facts. There's not much debate you can have over these facts. The facts might be relevant, but you can't have much disagreement otherwise with this first facts slide. The second slide is the challenge, and this is the problem statement. And I made sure to take in writing what the problem statement was. Consulting training taught me that. So it's not very probable that I have the problem statement wrong. So the challenge of what we're trying to achieve, what constitutes success, if you will. So this is the second slide. No debate, no rocket science. I'm going for Dale Carnegie's yes, yes, yes approach. 2 yeses so far, and the third page is the approach, how I think we could tackle this problem. And here we might have some subjective differences, and that's life. And I was already predicting that there might be, oh, we don't do it this way in this company, oh, the culture doesn't require that. Yeah, this I'm predicting. So that's the third slide. But by this time, you're already quite convinced with your consultant and you're more nudging him at this point that this is more an approach you should take. Can I see another draft by next Monday, for instance? So I'm all geared up. I'm super excited for this thing. I have already rehearsed it 2 or 3 times that Friday morning. And this afternoon, this guy walks in, this client guy walks in and he takes a seat and he asks me to start. Less than 5 minutes of me speaking, he asks me to pause and he asks me to cycle through the slides. And he goes through all of the slides without me speaking while he's reading it. And he already gets into feedback mode. And I'm super frustrated. I'm like, just let me do my spiel. Yeah, just hear me out. Did I get your problem right? Is this approach going to work for you? What do you not like in my approach? This is what I had in my mind. It was going to last 10 minutes anyway, and this guy's just not having it. And at the end of that feedback session, I felt like a worthless piece of nothingness. Like there were so many negative words that was thrown at me, which I felt were completely unfair. I wasn't even allowed to make my presentation. And something as trivial as the color of the font, I picked the wrong blue apparently. It's an internal meeting, it's trivial, we're kind of agreeing if this approach works. We're not publishing this to the wider public in the company. Does it matter what blue it is? Do we need to spend 25 seconds on that? I don't know. And at the end of this meeting, I'm just thinking that I'm not made for this. I don't belong here. I should just find another job, be an Uber driver maybe. That's what's going through my mind. And at the end of the day, I'm like dragging myself through the end of this week. This is the first week at work, yeah. I reach out to my Indian manager, the one from the consultancy side, and I shared this point of view. And she goes immediately, oh yeah, of course, no, that's understandable. And I'm like, what is understandable? Oh yeah, no, it's always the same with this client. And I go, I thought this guy was being a pain towards me. It's difficult to make sweeping statements like this, but I've been here long enough to realize that the French do not hold back with negative feedback. And they don't sugarcoat it with positive feedback. We have the sandwich effect back home in India. This part was great. You need to work more on this. And otherwise, this other part is great. And this is also the American way, I'm guessing. But in France, they don't. This presentation is crap because your font is not right. Your logo is wrong. I disagree with 5 points in your thing. There are 2 spelling mistakes. Work on it. Instead of, I agree with the context. Your problem statement is right. Your approach needs tweaking. I would change points 3 to 6. They're both the same message, but coming from two different people. And I was so convinced that this guy is being a douche, and it influenced the way that I worked with him for the rest of that stay, because I was just more on my defenses. I was just trying to play it as safe as possible, super safe, really. And because of that, I did not bring out the most creative part out of me, and this is something that I want to talk to you guys about, which I discovered from reading the first two chapters of the culture map. So last week I spoke to you guys about communication, how it would be difficult for a high context guy like an Indian moving to another high context country like France. And those high contexts are different, like the contexts are different, and for this reason you need to learn the other way around. Yeah, I spoke to you guys about the communication thing last week, and this week they're calling it evaluation for the second chapter. And at first I was like, what is this? And eventually I was like, damn, she is so on point. And the thing with this evaluation scale is, from the first one, while you're kind of opposites, India and France, we are on the same side of the high context side, and let's say America is here on the low context. The thing with this evaluation scale is countries that are on the opposed side of the spectrum in the first scale, they cross over on this one. Meaning, for a French guy, an American can sound direct in the communication scale, saying that, oh, they just don't hold back, they are no fluff, all very straightforward, they don't hold back. And then when it comes to the evaluation scale, it could be the flip, where the Americans would go easy on the negative feedback, and the French, who are people who are supposed to read between the lines, and they would go straight in and give you straight negative feedback. I mean, I know this from context from in India. Like, if I went to a pharmacy in India and I wanted to buy a paracetamol, I would just walk up to the counter and I would say, do paracetamol dena. Not like, bonjour, comment ça va? None of that stuff. As if I know the guy, I'd probably smile and ask him how he's doing. But if I just said, do krosin dena bhai, he would not be like, what a rude guy. He just comes in and bosses me around. And in France, and the other way around, it's just so touchy, where you just walk in and said, deux paracetamol s'il vous plaît. They'll be, no, bonjour, comment allez-vous, and then you can say what you want to say. Given that there is so much formality and I'm not being straightforward in France, I would expect that same behavior when it came to this negative feedback, where you would expect me to read between the lines and you would not go direct on me, you would not go ballistic on me, and you'd go easy when you're giving me negative feedback. But that's not the case. I've lived here long enough to realize that the French people do not have a problem dwelling in negative talk. Although they use a lot of positive words, c'est un peu spécial quand même, no? They use a lot of positive words, but they dwell a lot in complaining, in melancholy, in being critical, in being negative. And that's just not them being sad, that they're fine with that. For an Indian guy hearing all this negative talk, at least for an optimistic Indian guy, hearing all this negative talk, it just pulls my energy down. But for them, it's just like, yeah, that's just regular conversation. I mean, what is there to smile about? The weather is grey and it's cold and life is terrible. I'll see you guys next week.